Bob Barbecue.
And I'm Giggleklutz. And today we're talking about
I Am Dead.
Ooh. Sounds like it would be a spooky title. Instead, it's a whimsy-filled, kind of quirky, quaint.
And I'd call it a puzzle exploration game.
With some really unique mechanics that we'll get into a little bit later in our review. And this episode is going to be a review episode for the beginning. Then there'll be a spoiler warning. And then there will be a discussion. Okay. So, to start off our review of I Am Dead. I Am Dead was released on Steam on October 8th, 2020. It was developed by Hollow Ponds / Richard Hogg. And it was published by Annapurna Interactive and released for the price of $19.99 on Steam. It's a interactive puzzle / narrative storytelling game. I don't know. It's kind of hard to describe, but
it's kind of out there. There's a lot of things about it that I wouldn't say are exactly unique, but altogether it's very different.
It is its own thing. There's nothing else like this, even though, yeah, parts of it are kind of similar to other things, and it definitely contains a really unique mechanic.
So, as a brief story summary, you play as Morris, someone who is fairly recently deceased, and the ghost of his dog tells him that the island is in danger, and he needs to find a new custodian to talk to the island and keep it from erupting into a volcano. And that's primarily what the adventure is about, going and talking to other ghosts to find somebody to talk to the island. And it does sound very weird to say, because it is weird. This game is weird.
But not in a bad way. In a, very chill and quaint, whimsical way, which I know are all words and which are all adjectives. All adjectives I have used to describe it a little earlier, but really they do apply. For a game titled I Am Dead, it is kind of bizarre that the words to describe it are whimsical, quaint, and weird, yes, but it is more calm and whimsical and weird.
Yeah, this definitely falls into, a very casual gameplay. And I know a lot of people say that as a bad way, casuals, but no, I never mean that in a bad way.
Oh gosh, no. I mean, some of the art's pretty serious. Not in this game, but in games in general. And then, that I'd hate for some games to be called casual for that. But anyway, it has nothing to do with the review of this game. So anyway, let's get into the mechanics. How is this story told, and what are you expected to do?
So have you ever looked at just, anything, any object you have around you, and it's I wonder what would it look like if I could stick my head, halfway through it and see what it looks like on the inside. That is what you do in this game. That is the central mechanic.
Yeah, what would happen if I could saw something in half and have it still structurally be intact?
How can you physically phase your perspective into an object? That is what you do in this game. It's you find things and you look inside of them.
And the primary puzzles are finding specific objects to connect with the ghosts so you can talk to them to find the new custodian. And you do that by using the mechanic of phasing your perception inside it and finding objects that are meaningful to the person who you're trying to talk to. And so much thought has gone into the details of this whimsical world.
The story of not only what makes the object you're looking for relevant, but where it has ended up afterwards, and you get stories of other things you might run into along the way.
Okay, I'm gonna start with, an example in the very first level, right? There's a lot of slippers. You want to just find all of them. That's what it feels like when you just... There's one in this shelf. There could be one in the bathroom. Where have all these slippers ended up?
Pretty sure there's an achievement for finding all the slippers.
And we don't have it. And we looked.
So yeah, I mean, there's a lot of whimsy and fun stuff going on in these quirky little environments. And the story is told through the memories of the people still alive on Shelmerston remembering the people, the ghosts that we're trying to talk to.
Shelmerston is the island.
Yes.
I think we may have skipped a few details in the setup of this game. The setting.
But in the meantime, it does tell the story of this quaint little place in great detail, but mostly through the memories of the people living on it and objects that they have in their possession and just stuff around the island.
Not a whole lot of, big narrative things driving you through all the details of what this island is like. You just find that out by poking around and, reading the extra little blurbs that pops up on the screen when you look at something.
Yeah, you'll never know what you're going to find when you zoom in on something. Maybe there's a snake. Maybe there's something buried in this potted plant.
To tell you just how ridiculous the details in this game could be sometimes, is that if there was a refrigerator you could go into, you could check the lettuce in the refrigerator, and in there was a caterpillar eating it, and he has a name. That remote, tiny little caterpillar is a named character.
Yeah, there's a love of the game in the game. So our review is that it's a whimsical puzzle game. The mechanic is one in superliminal fashion where it does lean towards you being able to find what you're looking for. It will even take over the controls sometimes for you if you get close. You don't have to get it exact. You just have to be looking in the right direction. And so it's on your side. This game is your friend. In story, in mechanics, except maybe the timed mechanics. We didn't really... There is a section that's timed that we didn't participate in.
Yeah, there's just haha, can you find the thing before time runs out? Here's my riddle.
And we're like, maybe not. So we can't speak to that.
Yeah, Whitstable is kind of a jerk who goes against the core gameplay loop.
Yeah, lore-wise, I decide that he just doesn't exist.
Anyway, we do recommend the game. We had a lot of fun playing it for a lot of reasons.
One of my biggest gripes is that, the mouse controls are awful. There's something weird with the sensitivity. Be sure to play with that if you get the game yourself. But in general, I recommend using the keyboard controls for rotating and zooming. It's a lot more precise, and sometimes you might want that if you're going for the secret Grenkins.
No, you definitely want that if you're going... Well, sometimes you want it for the memories, too.
Yeah.
So it's there's, in recommendation, if there's something you can do with the mouse or the keyboard, do it with the keyboard. You'll be a lot less frustrated. So, mechanics can be a little bit wonky, but it's not in, hitboxes of the game.
Mm-hmm. I'd say for the most part it handles it very well. Just use the keyboard...
Anything else for the review other than thumbs up?
Well, I could talk about Sparky, but I feel like that would...
We can put that in discussion.
Yeah.
We can put that in discussion. Okay. So, this is our official spoiler warning. If this game sounds like it's something that would be fun for you, and we do recommend it, it's definitely a worthwhile ride to spend time in a calm environment, exploring this place that's adjacent to Earth. They refer to places like New Zealand when they talk, so it's you're supposed to think you're on Earth, but there are also fish people and bird people and things like that going on.
There's gardener robots.
Right.
It is set on a planet that is presumably called Earth.
Right.
It has other places named after stuff you find on Earth, but it is definitely a different planet.
Yes. Absolutely. So, yeah, if that sounds like it's your alley and you enjoy narrative puzzle games, especially ones that are lighthearted, but big-hearted, too. I'm going to call it lighthearted and big-hearted.
It's like a balloon. What?
I'm just making a face at you because you really don't like balloons. Most of the big thing the balloons do is not a thing you like at all. So I'm I don't know. I don't think of balloons as big-hearted unless all big-hearteds explode.
I was thinking it's just big and light.
Yeah. Sorry, I can't look at you and think balloon and think big and light. Nope.
Hot air balloon. How about that?
I don't know. I don't think it would be, fair to the writers to just say, oh, it's all just full of hot air.
Oh my god.
Yeah, there we go. Thank you. Anyway, if any of that sounds like your cup of tea, we do recommend the game. If you don't want it spoiled for yourself, not that it's I don't know, I don't think it would be terribly ruined by listening to the discussion, but it is really nice to hear these stories and have the feeling of the experience exposed to you gradually through the narrative process. So yeah, if you're going to play it, we recommend not spoiling it for yourself, although it's not going to seem like it from listening to the discussion. Mm-hmm. So from here on, spoilers, and we're going to discuss the whole thing, including the end. So where do we want to start with that? First of all, how about I talk about the tone?
All right.
I found it really fascinating about this game is that it is about somebody who's already died, but it's not about grief. This is not an exploration of grief. It's not about sadness. It's not a sad game. There is some sadness in it, but not the overarching sadness tone that I usually find in games that are grappling with grief.
Yeah, because we're playing as the perspective of a dead person, Morris, a lot of the sort of grief and sadness that we get to see is him thinking that maybe he didn't leave an impact on the world around him, and regretful that that might be the case.
Right. It turns out that it ends up being more about transitions rather than about death or about endings and grief. It is about when things end and new things begin, because it does build on the premise that there is an afterlife in this world. You don't just become a ghost and people grieve you. There's an afterlife you move on to, into the West.
It's either like the official afterlife or a stop existing kind of thing. Okay. They're kind of don't exactly say, but it's definitely where ghosts go when they're ready to move on.
And they're given a chance before they move on, and that's where Morris is at. Morris is at the point where he's coming to grips with his own death, but he's also given a goal, so it's not really the focus of the game. It's what happens to him through the plot of the game, but, it's the theme, not the plot. And I've found it really interesting to have a game about death that was not really about grief. And that's fascinating to me just at that level. That, it's a puzzle game where you're just died, and you're the main character, and it's not about the grieving people, it's not about grieving the people you lost in life.
Yeah, how our main character passed away is, as far as I can recall, not really explained at all, because that part's not even the point.
Yeah, I assume it's pretty peaceful, otherwise he probably would know about it, and it seems like he doesn't.
Yeah, and it's not mentioned anywhere else either. It really is just glossed over like it's the least important thing.
It's like if they said it somewhere, I don't remember.
Or maybe they do. I think they just, even in the newspaper article you read about him, I think it's just talks about his life. He lived this long, and he did these things. Like Morris ran the Shelmerston Museum, where they had all the artifacts about what went on in Shelmerston in the past. And you get to explore that and look inside those objects, too.
Yeah, more secrets. Whoa!
So, that's my first thing that I found interesting, was that it is a game focused on a time period of death, but not really about, the existential crisis of death, or not about grief. It's a lot more chill than that.
Yeah, it's like just, having something about death that is like, willing to just take a different perspective or approach to it is
refreshing, I would say.
Because it's like, well, with any big thing, there's more than one facet to it, and, it's important to, even if it really doesn't feel like it at the time, remember that there's more than one side to all of it.
Yeah, and I don't know if this fits in very well with what we're talking about, but something I'm thinking about is, I like how the depictions of the people reminiscing about the dead person are. Like, they're sure everything they're thinking about has like that twinge of sadness, like, oh, I'm thinking about somebody who's passed away, but it's still bittersweet. It's never like super sad, it's bittersweet. And that's very realistic, especially when it's been, typically these people have been dead for at least 5 years.
Yeah, the death is not fresh. So they're not in the throes of the deep grief or shock around the deaths of these people. Even Morris has been dead for a little while before the story starts. So we don't meet anybody in this story who's deep in the shock of just losing a loved one or anything. Which is refreshing too. If this is the topic you're going to broach, it's, again, refreshing not to be thrust right into the hardest part of it.
Mm-hmm.
To play a more whimsical take on all this stuff.
Which is kind of why I think a good part of this game and what it's trying to say is about, like, not necessarily, like, letting go or moving on, but just acceptance. This is the acceptance phase. And most games involving the dead kind of go through either all of it or just, like, one part that's not this one. I think this is just acceptance.
You mean stages of grief?
Yeah, kind of.
Okay. Yeah. And death in this is more focused as a transition. It is the idea that life moves on and that it's not a bad thing that it does. Our perspective on the lives of the people that we knew changes, but it's not a bad thing that it does. Time moves on and no one is drowned in their sadness, which is how grief is often depicted.
Right, that's
when you're
what
going to bring it into a story, often someone is still caught in shock, drowning in grief, and there's none of that in this.
Yeah, that's what I think I was trying to get at, was like, that's the depression stage of grief. That's where a lot of games involving death are.
Yeah, it makes sense. It's like, you know, if you're gonna try and make art, it's usually gonna be something that's emotionally affecting you a whole bunch. That's kind of what it needs. And depression just wants to completely devour your emotional spectrum, so you don't really think about anything else.
Yeah, it's typically, I think, one that kind of hurts the most. Like, sure, like, anger can hurt your relationships, but the depression part just really is the death's impact on you, and that's why I think there's a lot of games that have that.
That focus on that, yeah. And this one's different in that it doesn't. That's not the focus of this one at all. And it's fascinating to have a game about... It's not really about death, honestly. It is more about life than it is about death. And it is about how acceptance feels as life does move on, as people come and go from life. And you spend more time getting to know Shelmerston as a whole, getting to see the community as a whole, rather than getting attached to individual people that live in it in a deep way. And I think that that's, well, you know, that's the theme, is if you focus on the community, acceptance becomes easier too.
So how about we touch on the story a little bit?
Sounds good.
So as I covered before, Morris and his dog Sparky are trying to find a new custodian to talk to the island and keep it from erupting. Details about this are kind of dropped at the end of each level, as Sparky is kind of holding back how much she knows, which is very weird for a dog. You know, it comes off very strange. And I think in part it's supposed to, but in other parts it just is very uncomfortable, I guess, because she's written a lot more like a British person and less like a dog.
I mean, there is genuinely in the story this aspect of, yes, this is Sparky, and no, this isn't.
Right.
And it still comes out in ways that don't feel intentional.
It's the weirdest part, I think, is the idea that, I mean, Morris doesn't spend long enough shocked that he's actually conversing with his dog now.
Just, yeah, the notion that he can talk to his deceased dog now is weird.
But it's weirder who she is, because she ends up being a representative of the island at the same time, but it's not revealed right away. So she kind of, like, channels things sometimes, and it's not explained, and and Honeyshuckle is annoyed at her personality anyway.
It's just like, she just says, like, oh yes, we dogs really like this thing, and I don't remember what it was, but I'm just like, you should not even have a concept of what that is. You're a dog! It should be a very you thing, if anything. Or even, like, I think there's a time where she talks about not liking a smell, even, and I'm just like, you're a dog! You're a dog! Smells like your whole thing.
At least normally, yeah. Were you a really weird dog, Sparky? You are now, but were you?
It's like, you know, that's just the thing about being a dog. Every stank has a story.
Yeah, where we look inside objects to get their past, maybe Sparky looks inside the smells.
That would make complete sense. In fact, if they added that, that would be really cool.
Oh, wow, the Sparky Vision DLC!
Woo! But then you'd have to listen to her talk more.
Oh, it's a double-edged sword. On the one hand, I'd get more of this game. On the other hand, it's Sparky.
Yeah. Agreed.
Yeah, so since we've touched on this, Sparky being an aspect of the island's spirit, the whole point of the game, everything she's leading you down, is to prepare Morris to be the new custodian. Because she was able to bond with him in life, and she really cares about him, and she wants him to be the next custodian.
Yeah, he's built a museum of, the culture and history of Shelmerston. He loves this place. If you need somebody to, really, connect and communicate with the island to just, help look after it, you're gonna have a hard time finding a better candidate, and that's, what you do most of the game, is not find a better candidate.
Yeah, that's literally the whole point of the game.
Yeah, each ghost you talk to turns you down for the custodian job for a different reason, and that reason makes it more and more solid that Morris is the ideal candidate. He just isn't ready to take the job.
Yeah, and that's what Sparky's preparing him for. And, yeah, you get to see that, the different aspects of the island that he loves. He loves the culture, he loves the history, which is different from the culture sometimes.
Absolutely.
And he loves the people, he loves the animals, he loves the sea.
He loves the tourists.
Yeah. He loved his life on Shelmerston.
And part of the coping with being dead and worrying about his own impact is, as he goes through this process, Sparky and the people that he talks to, while they're remembering someone else, while he's going into people's memories and they're remembering these other people who died, you also get to see the impact Morris had as he talks about, oh, I remember when I was also there, and I remember when I knew this person, and that was a wonderful time. And the whole game starts with him walking down the beach and ending up at a memorial bench that they had put on the beach where he used to play fetch with Sparky, that they put there after he died. And it's how he's basically told that he died.
Yeah, he went to the spot where he always, took his dog, and there's a memorial bench to him.
Yeah, and, he doesn't really register this at first, but through playing this game, you kind of get to pick up on yourself. I think he's in absolute denial that, even if a lot of his close friends have passed on, he still left a lot of impact with the people who are still alive. There's a little section in the museum that has his picture. I mean, Sparky's urn used to be there too, but I think by the end of the game it's not there.
I don't know. That's really not that important.
Yeah, but the point is that there's a corner dedicated to Morris, and I'm sure if he looked, he'd be able to find stuff on himself, but he's kind of focused on finding other things at the moment.
In the meantime, the point is not only did he love Shelmerston, but Shelmerston loved him back.
Yes, that's where I was leading. Yes, thank you for bringing that home.
Yeah, no problem. You were floating out there. We just needed... Come on, this is where you land. Right over here.
So, yeah, but, thinking about finding somebody for the position of custodian is each ghost you find the memories and mementos of to, speak to them and ask them if they want to take up that position. One of them is maybe it's time for the island to just erupt. Then, Sparky, being able to channel the spirit of the island to some extent, speaks, the island speaks through them and says, yes, I want to erupt, there will be a time for that, but I don't want to do it yet.
There are people here, and the people will move on eventually. I don't want to be the reason.
See, there are things here I care about too, and I don't want to erupt and destroy them. I feel like that really does, it's an interesting note and, helps you really want to keep going with it after all the other stuff that comes up is that, yeah, the island wants you to find someone
to help it calm down and to not erupt. And if it just needs, a conduit to be the connection between the people and the island to make time pass differently for the island in a way. And it's just an interesting concept. And it turns out, you find out that the previous custodian was a bog person, that they actually have her body in the museum, and that is a little weird, but not that terribly uncommon on I don't know, fortunately, unfortunately, I would prefer replicas if you were going to do that, but, you can see real bodies in museums and churches and a lot of places in the world.
The fascination with death transcends any medium.
That was one of the weirdest things about going to Rome, was actually, viewing real bodies.
Yeah.
That's
But we waited in line to get in this building, so I guess we'll walk around.
Seeing the preserved bodies of, famous religious folks is like, well, it's not for me.
No. I don't know what it does for some people, but it was just like, I don't know. It just, kind of as to the theme of the game, there's a point to moving on. There's a reason that life moves on. And like the custodian stayed, and the, Aggie, the bog woman in this game.
The custodian.
The previous custodian is moving on because her grave was disturbed. And she can't stay, right?
I think it's that she's taking this opportunity to decide that she wants to move on. She's ready. She's spent enough time with the island.
Like 10,000 years or something so far?
Yeah.
It's a part of the island's ancient history.
Right.
Mm-hmm. And they talk about, that's when she started having these doubts, through a different character, one of the potential custodians. Because the reason he refuses is because he blames Morris for the custodian needing to move on. He just goes, it's your fault, you disturbed her body, you're putting it on display in this museum. It's just, it's all your fault, I'm not cleaning up after your mess.
Which is a really responsible take for a video game to make. I'm gotta say,
Yeah, and I can definitely see where he's coming from with that. It's just when we talk to Aggie, she's like, no, I'm good. I'm alright. I'm just ready to go. I'm also here facilitating you finding out that we picked you as the replacement, Morris. Congratulations on finding me, by the way. It's just this whole scheme where it's just Morris, are you ready yet? Morris, are you ready yet?
But of course, when we're talking about, Aggie, that's one of the plot things that doesn't end up, that kind of doesn't work in how they present it. Aggie is this part of the ancient history of the island and has a dedicated holiday, but somehow is also somebody that Morris doesn't recognize, while also acknowledging exists.
Yeah, I acknowledge this as, having the character be ignorant so that way the audience gets filled in. But I think could have been played off as, oh, that's the same Aggie!
The thing is ignorant for the sake of the player, but at the same time is kind of doesn't act like that in a few spots anyway.
Yeah, it's a little inconsistent.
Which is okay. I mean, there's a lot going on in a lot of this.
Yeah, the fact that there's one thing I can nitpick like that, it's that's just a small part of what we've said about the game's story and themes and whatnot already, so it can't be that bad.
Yeah, we haven't really even touched on, a lot of the recurring lore themes of the island, the urban myth that there's a camel on the island. Which...
Somewhere. And people have seen it a few times, and... Somebody made a statue of it at one point.
There's a bar named and shaped after the camel. Then there's the plot line that fish people like toast.
Yeah, they like toast because it's dry food. That's something you can never have if you live underwater.
So they have toast shops on Shelmerston.
Yep. And then, yes, the bird people... Is it bird people have it too, or is it just the birds, when you find birds on the island, kind of like flounders and they have two eyes on the same side of their head?
Bird people have more traditional bird faces, but the actual bird animals on the island have really fucked up eyes. Really fucked up eyes.
The stylization of the positioning of their eyes can change between individuals.
Yeah, so...
That's not even a thing that's necessarily, exclusive to, seagulls or whatever.
Yeah.
I remember finding that in a few places.
I don't know why they did this to the birds, but not, the bird people. I mean, I understand not doing it to the bird people, because that is just super uncanny. Instead of just, uncanny.
Right. And there's several things that are kind of just weird. Like, why is this like this? I don't know. And there's no reason. They don't explain it to you. What's funny is that well, I don't know. That's really not my topic. So I was going to say is like they get into the whole culture of the town and really get into the day-to-day life of living in Shelmerston as you talk to all these people. Do you want to talk more about that?
I mean, it's like, yeah, that kind of, contributes to a lot of the, people are still living their lives even after the folks they've lost, because you can see them out there. See people that those stories were also about. It's like other noteworthy folks to the ghosts you're trying to find are still living on, Shelmerston, and you get to see them doing stuff there. That can even change as the level progresses.
Yeah. But, like, if you see somebody in one place, like, you may zoom in, take a look at something, zoom out, and they're gone, and they're somewhere else in the level.
These two kids you get introduced fairly early on who you'll spot them throughout just getting up to different weird antics.
Yeah, climbing on stuff, making a tree house.
Holding a boat.
It's adorable.
It really does try to show a working village and the interplay of the people doing their jobs, going through their daily lives. All of it is quite detailed and complicated for kind of what could be just set pieces. They could be just dioramas, but they're not.
Yeah, like the little caterpillar that you mentioned, that's not the only, like, hidden animal that has a name. Most of the animals that you find have names.
Not all the people have names.
Yeah, just...
It's like, you see the spider in that shoe? This guy's named Jeremy. That's all we have on him, that's just his name. That might have been the caterpillar, but I'm pretty sure it was the spider.
Meanwhile,
It was Jerome. I think it was Jeremy, though.
We don't
play the game and find out for yourself.
Yeah, comment below which one it is.
Comment the correct name and you get the prize of being
right.
correct at trivia.
Yeah, being correct on the internet is one of the most impressive things you can do. That's why people argue all the time.
Apparently.
Is there anything else you want to talk about with the lore of the town? Any other weird things?
I mean, there's Grankins.
Yeah, Grankins are weird. Like, what are they? What do they do? Were we ever told?
Or do they just exist and we find them?
It's like, that kind of like, spirit, fae kind of things. They kind of look like weird beans.
They do look like weird beans.
And yeah, that's sort of a optional sort of stretch goal objective, where it's like, once they get a little bit into a level, you'll be able to start finding the Grankins, and they are hiding not just like in specific objects, but specifically like kind of looking inside of an object at an angle.
Yeah.
You find the right cross pattern of one of the objects that you're examining, and once you get the right pattern, then the Grunkin will appear.
Yeah. I forget how many there are, but we found all of them.
It's a lot. There's a lot. There's a lot of them. I mean, okay, it's not Korok a lot, but it's a lot.
Yeah, not Koroks, just
Grunkins.
Just Grankins, yeah.
And it's like, if you got all of them, you find this like nifty little spot in the forest where they all hang out, and that is it.
Yep.
Little
like,
Granking party!
And I mean, like, they'd like standing on like a rock or something that looks pretty neat if you zoom inside of it, but...
Like, definitely, though, like, it's kind of satisfying to find them because, you have to know the level or figure out what the object actually is.
What thing do I have to slice into to get this pattern?
Oh, God, the watering can one was the worst. No more specific than that. It was the worst, okay?
Well, we did tell them spoilers, so... Yeah, and the other... I mean, some quaint things they put in there, though, that come out in the story that give you the day-to-day life is, like, they talk about, like, past cricket matches, the history of their festivals, which include a race with shells on their heads, and the fact that they changed what used to be a local hunting festival where they killed a specific kind of animal on their beaches to where they started saving them instead. They talked about how the island's culture has changed over time as people became more modern and more aware of the impact that they were having on what was going on around them.
Yeah, and the bird people are tourists. They're kind of migratory, but now that migration's not really needed, they are just tourists, so they come to Shelmerston for the summer, which is kind of fun. It's a fun take on, if migratory birds no longer needed to actually migrate, that they had, a civilization, how would that manifest? And in this case, it's being tourists.
And then there is a local underground market in bootleg alcohol. And almost everywhere you look, you can find, in every level, pretty much, you can find some of it.
So, after they really introduce it to you, the notorious counterfeit whiskey Sheepshank is hidden inside of stuff.
You get introduced to a bottle in, the second level because some kids stole one and then hid it in the forest. And, well, you find it.
Yeah, it's that's what the game is all about, is finding...
Oh yes, the game is all about finding bootleg whiskey.
Not just
finding... It's just a subplot.
Finding stuff in the same way that the Sheepshank gets hidden.
Yeah.
But it ends up being, later on, you actually can look through the still where they make the Sheepshank. It's a whole underlying kind of subplot thing in the quaint village of Shelmerston. This is a local custom thing. Everybody knows about it, even the customs guy.
It's a secret to everybody. Wink.
Yeah.
Yeah. It just, the tourists don't need to know.
Meanwhile, would you like some in your coffee? Start the morning with your Sheepshank. Anyway.
It's beautiful.
Yeah, it's that alone is plenty of material for really having a running joke.
Yeah.
And I don't think there's anything to quite that extreme anywhere else. There's still more of that.
Yeah, I think we've touched on, the biggest running lore bits, running jokes even, but there's a lot of smaller threads as well. I'm sure you can find a little bit about some of the fishermen, because you get to see Old Town, and you get to see the wharf, and those two are right next to each other. Old Town is facing inland, and the wharf is facing outward. So I imagine there's a lot of similar characters between those. That you could probably pick up on more things than we have, because we played a level a week.
Yeah, and if you sat down and you played it every night for a week, because there is hours of material in this. This is not a short game. In fact, it's honestly, I'd say it's probably better if you spread it out. It would be kind of boring to sit down and play it all at once.
Yeah. Maybe you don't need to spread it out as much as we did, but yeah, take your time. Look at all these things that they rendered. Most of them, they didn't really take shortcuts. I mean, there's a couple of assets that are copied, but that's gaming.
It's they really committed to giving you a lot of interesting objects and set pieces to, examine and look inside of. So many times in, just about any other game, if you go inside an object, if you look inside a 3D model in the game, there's just going to be nothing in there. For the most part, it's just going to look like empty space, even if there's another side to it.
Either that or it'll be that other side that you see right away,
This is lets you see inside things, but also puts substance in there.
You look inside the toilet tank, there's going to be toilet guts in there.
I think there's an octopus in one of those, actually.
Or
yeah, but even aside
something.
from that, there's wires and things inside the radio. There's coils inside the refrigerator, not just lettuce.
There's a hearty amount of unexpected and indeed very expected things you'll find when you look into stuff. The fact that they were willing to do both readily is
Mm-hmm. Yeah, how much milk is there left?
There's a really deep handshake between reality and whimsy in here. There's a lot of real down-to-earth details. While the fantastical elements of bird people and fish people and stuff is there, they're doing things that people would do. Fish people do still fish and they do still swim, but it's not like they have a culture based on drowning people or something.
No, they just live in the water, and there's some of them who come on land, some of them who don't, and we're starting to get to the point in history where more of them are coming on land because toast is just that good.
Which is just weird to me. I still have a hard time with the whole toast thing. But it's fun, but it's just as I'm thinking about it, I like toast, don't get me wrong, but if my whole body was based on a water aesthetic, I imagine it getting stuck in my throat. It just doesn't, I can't imagine a fish eating toast. It just bothers me, and I know that's the joke.
Does toast normally get stuck in your throat?
No, but I don't breathe water either.
Well,
I don't know why it's different. It's just if I imagine I'm a fish person, when I do, the toast gets stuck in my throat.
Yeah, but it doesn't stop fish from eating bread anyways if you throw it at them.
In the water. In the water. I'm sorry. That's just me. Anyway.
So you have, things like... They may be fish folk, but they are coming up to the surface to enjoy the cuisine, not like they're coming onto the surface so they can build spaceships in their backyards. That's the kind of...
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Thank you, yeah.
It's a different Earth, but it is relatively down to it.
Yeah. It's relatable. It's a place that you could imagine going. These are people you could imagine meeting, even though they live in this kind of fantastical scenario that's just weird for no reason. I love it. The weirdness makes the game so much more special than it would be otherwise.
It's like they could have just stopped at ghosts, but they didn't, and that's what really makes the game.
Yeah.
Yeah, I went into this thinking I would kind of groan for most of it after being introduced to Sparky very early in the game. And then I just fell in love with it, and talking about the game again reminds me about how much I love it. There's enough in here that there's a good chance that you're going to forget about something and then, come back later and just be like, oh my gosh, was this here the whole time?
Yep, it was. And you might have even made note of it at the time, but here we are. So, yeah, in the end, are we pretty much wrapped up?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure.
Yeah.
Okay, well, I Am Dead. A whimsical, calm, quaint, very weird, very fun puzzle game about life, even though it's I Am Dead. So, what are you going to say? Check it out, enjoy yourself. Are we going to talk about what we've been playing?
Let's see. Okay, so on a Tiny Game Tuesday recently, I played this game called Katja's Abyss, and it's a Minesweeper tactics game, and it's kind of been living rent-free in my head ever since. So that's mostly what I've been thinking about, even if I haven't been playing it. I like this concept. I wish it was slightly more polished.
Which is high praise.
Yeah.
You never wish games you don't like were more polished. Mm-hmm. I'm serious. It's wanting it to be more polished means you stuck with it despite preventable frustration that it gave you.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, that's high praise.
I looked at the review, I wrote it today, and it's just most of a page. And I'm I'm this passionate about Minesweeper. Okay, it's a little more than Minesweeper, but you get the point.
I guess. I'm taking your word for it. I have not played this game.
So, contrary to what I, said in this sort of segment in the previous episode, I have actually gotten to play Pizza Tower at this point, and I see why it's a thing that a lot of people are, bringing up and why it has, overwhelmingly positive reviews on Steam. It's good.
And you guys have also been playing a lot of Tears of the Kingdom.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I kind of did some shiny hunting today.
Not in Tears of the Kingdom.
No.
I'm so confused.
No, I was just thinking about the Switch,
okay.
I did some shiny hunting on the Switch.
The shinies you find in Tears of the Kingdom aren't random.
No, those are the preserved weapons underground, right? That's what you're thinking of?
There was a shiny horse.
Oh, yeah, I still haven't done that quest.
I think I tried it once and I didn't have enough stamina to actually do it yet. So, because I'm still very at the beginning of Tears of the Kingdom, like I was saying before, it's hard for me to do more than one open world at a time, and right now I'm still working my way through Outer Wilds. We're nearing the end of the main plot at this point.
We might be at the end, and by the time this episode comes out, even, we'll see, maybe.
Right, and so it's going to be hard for us to say for sure what episode we're going to do next. Because, I don't know.
What was on the list for next?
Achievements.
Yes, I'm excited for that.
Okay, well then, we'll do an episode on achievements next then. And,
I'm sure I've got some good stories I'll need to...
Oh, yeah. See, exactly. We're getting excited about that now. So our next episode is going to be about achievements. Then probably after that is going to be an episode about the Outer Wilds. And probably one of a few. Anyway, so that's what's going on there. I also played a short hike over this last couple weeks. And yeah, I had fun with it. It's also hard to put myself in the brain of something so simple while I'm playing the Outer Wilds, I've got to say. But yeah, there's a lot of whimsy in there, and it's nice to have something that's lighthearted to play too. So
yeah, I think that there's also a celebration of the mundane in that game that this game shares, although I think I Am Dead leans so much harder into whimsy.
Yeah, I guess. Yeah, no, if especially if we're talking weird.
Yeah.
It's definitely weird. Short hike, not so weird, but it's really lighthearted and big-hearted, too. It shares that lighthearted, big-heartedness, and all of the story beats are friendly story beats. There's no adversaries. You know, gravity itself is adversarial. You might have trouble with the terrain. But that's what you have to build up against. That's the only antagonist in the game. And it's nice, especially since a few things have multiple solutions, and you can do some achievement hunting in that one too, so, there's replayability. It's been kind of fun. Anyway,
that was a mini episode on a short hike.
I guess so. We probably won't do a whole episode on that one, no, but it'll come up again most likely.
Bonus content!
And with that, this has been Collab Not Multiplayer. I'm Honeyshuckleex.
I am still a Sackpot Barbecue.
And I'm Giggleklutz. Goodbye!
Bye!
Bye!